Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy hump day, everyone. Here's a look at the ES in the daily time frame right now. Not a whole lot of overnight price action here after the elections here on Tuesday. Currently, we have a very narrow range developing ahead of the RTH Open, 41% of ADR for the ES here. Additionally, what you see is price basically trading inside the previous session's range, very narrow range here, 2-day narrow range as it holds. A little bit of a rounded bottom developing still, with resistance across the highs here, 39.50 on the upside if you want to do it that way. But for the most part, it's still in a downtrend. It's still on a long-term downtrend. It's more on medium term as well. And right now we're turning down on the short term. We've kind of lifted in over the last few days here. But for the most part, we continue to see hard resistance here at 39.30. A little bit of rounded off behavior here, but if there's a failure at this previous month's midpoint, kind of like what we talked about earlier this month, we could pull back to that point, may bounce, but if it breaks later on in the month, it opens up the previous month's low. So right now, stuck between the previous month's high, the previous month's midpoint, and we could see a little bit more back and forth here before we see a move out of that range. If we take a look here at the NQ, this one has been a bit more bearish here. On the lower end of its range, this one has 11,800 as that major upside resistance, 11,750, 11,800. You have the lower edge down here about 600, and we've been inside that range for a while now. This one did give up the previous month's midpoint and dropped. Now returning to or retest that level from below. For the most part, we have a trading range here that is developed, that is very mature here. It's been developed here now going on a couple of months, and eventually we'll likely see expansion from this range. And if it's to the downside, we could be looking at a full-on target from this 100% key range target here, the 9,200 basically right here. So you have that 91.91, that's the 100% target from this key range right there. So that range, 100% move here. The 50 would be right there at about 10,130. And right now building some energy here before we see that next move. If it is through the 8,100 level, we could open up some upside back toward 13K. But again, this market has been sorely lagging the broader markets, especially the Dow. If we take a look at crude oil. Crude oil off right now by over 1% at the moment. A hard rejection at the top end of its key range. We had the key range here at 93.64. That's the key range high right there. Price came into it and saw a very sharp rejection. Intraday rejections across the board. And since then we broke down yesterday, stop run day down, and back to the previous session's previous month's midpoint. Now overall, if you reject this key range high, you tend to drop back to the key range midpoint. That's about 85 right there. So we still could be looking at a drop into 85 up ahead. And any pullback could be seen as a selling opportunity for a continuation toward 85 and maybe a bit lower. So watching for a continuation toward 85 ahead. We take a look here at gold futures. Gold right now around the break-even line here at the moment. A massive day in the previous session. This is something we talked about as well. After this narrow range day right here, after a high range day, you had a more narrowish range here, but a massive breakout that took you above 1680. And then a digestive day at 1680. We mentioned this could provide the potential for a big day the next day, which happened, but also with a failed new low kicker here. So you have a failed new low, outside day rally, a big time move. When you look at this 4-day move right here, it's one of the biggest 4-day moves we've seen on a bullish basis here in gold throughout the year. So massive move here the last couple of days. We're now having another digestive day at the moment, very similar to what we saw here. This could continue to kind of play out back and forth, but we have an upward bias towards 1740, and that's the top end of the regression channel as well. So 1740 is the level we talked about before. If price can push through 1680, it opens up 60 more handles to the upside. That's 1740. While we may see some digestive price action today, tomorrow could be a day that takes us into 1740 up ahead. Lastly, taking a look here at ETH futures. This one is getting crushed right now. We mentioned before that 1700 has been a big time area of resistance throughout the year, and if we can't get above that level, we likely swing back toward 1400, 1350. And it did that all in one fell swoop. Not only that, it dropped down to 1200 and is now trading a low here of 1130 and is currently trading 1200 even. So a massive correction here. Yesterday it was down 20+% at one point. Today we're down over 8% at the moment, and it's off the lows by quite a bit. So this market right now getting sold tremendously, and that could give us another big test here at this edge. 1200 is a big edge right now. That's a zone right here. If you bring this thing back across, we've had some support. We're at it now. It's an outside month down, taking out the previous month's high, taking out the previous month's low in a few days. Can price hold this edge, or do we go test new lows up ahead? This is going to be significant here, as this thing right now getting crushed. Bitcoin off as well by 3.65%. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.